Hey y'all, I'm Brianna and welcome to my YouTube channel. Happy to finally have started my channel. If you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, you definitely should. I'll post the link somewhere in the video. I haven't decided where yet. I've been contemplating making a channel for the longest time, and I'm a huge procrastinator, honestly, y'all. I'm the worst. So it took me forever, but here we are. New year. Well, it's February, but y'all know January was difficult, okay? January was tough. So I feel like everyone collectively decided that we're starting over in February. So, new year, new me, and here's my first video. I'm going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and this is going to be what a lot of videos on my channel are going to be about, which is travel. And I couldn't decide what aspect of travel I wanted to cover first, because I do get questions a lot, again, on my Instagram of how I travel, how I budget, how I travel solo, safety questions, all kinds of questions. So I figured I might as well make videos for everyone so everyone has access to the information that I've been taught and the things that I've learned through traveling and the tips and the lessons and everything in between. So here we are, and I have decided for my first video that we are gonna have a nice little tea time, a little chat about my first time traveling solo. I feel like most people's experience, or pause, rewind. Most of the travel influencers and bigger influencers and bloggers, etc., that I follow who are solo travelers, particularly women, because I follow mostly women, their stories, again, from the particular circle that I follow on social media and the articles I read, they seem to have very similar stories with how they got started solo traveling. I've seen a lot of, I was working in a corporate position and I really just was not happy and I decided to quit and see the world, or maybe they had grown up traveling with their families, and then obviously as they became adults they transitioned into traveling alone, and none of these were the case for me. I had a crazy experience traveling solo, so I'm here to discuss it with y'all. So sit back, get comfortable, get your snacks, get whatever you like to drink. There's a lot of tea in this video, so you definitely won't need that. But get comfortable and come on this ride with me, and let's get this story started. So I think it's important because the story is about someone who used to be a friend of mine. I think it's important to set the scene so that you guys can really and explain who and how this person is as a person and how we met and stuff, so you guys have a full understanding as I begin to explain what happened of why things happened the way they did. So this is a friend, we'll call her Charlie, that I met my first day in high school. That day we became friends, and she kind of showed me the ropes in high school. You know how that goes. You're super nervous. You're like a transitioning new student, and I was extremely nervous, new to everything, and she was a grade above me, so she had already been through everything, and we met and clicked and connected. She was also very shy and reserved, how I was at the time. So yeah, we just really connected and hit it off, and we became fast friends and stayed friends, and we're close throughout the school year and on throughout college. These were through multiple transitions. She ended up transitioning to a different school the next school year, and then when was in college. She had moved after high school for her. She had moved up to New York City. And I am down in North Carolina, so there was a state difference. And we were the type of friends that even after that first year, we weren't super, super close to the point that, we were going over to each other's house and having met each other's family. But it was one of those friendships that, like no matter how long you spend apart, the second y'all, meet again, it's like no time has passed and you can catch up and there's no awkwardness. Charlie, was one of those people that everyone liked. I feel like everyone knows someone like that. Just a very sweet person, very compassionate, very kind person, got along with everyone. Was, again, like I mentioned before, she was very shy and reserved. She was cool. Like, she just vibed with everyone. She had good connections. She, kept herself, stayed out of drama, and was all around good person as far as I knew during our friendship. And just, she was just all around sweet person. And so this story begins with her and I and me studying abroad in London my senior year of college. At this point, my senior year in college, we had been friends and known each other for almost 8 years. So quite a long time. So I was very comfortable with her. I trusted her completely. Like I said, we had been living in different states, but there have been several times over the past few years we had reconnected in person through visits, me going up to New York City, and we also, because we went to the same high school and are from the same hometown, although she wasn't, to my knowledge, as close with my close circle of friends, they all knew each other because we went to the same high school, because we came from the same hometown. So we were all cool. And we're all connected through social media. You know how it is nowadays. Everyone's connected through social media. And so, we all knew each other. We knew each other well. All my friends knew her and knew her to be a super sweet, compassionate, kind person. Everything that I'm listing. And we all just got along. So, like I said, fast forward again. This story starts when I studied abroad. Or found out, really. It starts when I found out I was studying abroad in London, England. And after I learned that I got accepted and I'd be for sure going and started the planning process for that, I, had let my friends know and other people close to me. And a lot of the responses I was getting was, I want to come visit. Girl, let's plan a trip. I'm about to work extra shifts so I can come visit you. And I was all for it. I was like, that's lit. Like, we'll have a great time together. Please come if you can. I'm so down for it. And Charlie was one of those people who said that she wanted to do a trip. Charlie was super serious about planning this trip. Or she was super serious about going on this trip with me. And she kept up with me about it initially before I had left for London, and she was excited for it, and we talked about it often before I left, and we had decided that we were going to wait till I got to London and get settled in before we, really started planning. And so I got to London, got settled in, got my schedule, figured out my day-to-day, and realized I'd have a lot more time than I thought I was going to have. And I learned that I had a week-long break midway through my semester, or not midway, a little past midway. It was over Halloween and the first week of November. I told Charlie about it, and we decided that we were for sure going to plan a trip for then. And at this point, this was mid-September that we decided this. And again, this trip would be happening like the last 2 days in October and the first few days in November. So about a week during that time span. We were really excited. And initially things were going well. We had picked 2 locations to travel to. We had decided to go to Paris and Madrid. And, we were talking about activities, things we were going to do, places we were going to stay, and kind of going over the beginning process of planning, which, as y'all will get to know through my videos, I am very type A. And I love to plan, y'all. Seriously, I love to plan. I'm one of those weirdos who enjoys lists. When I'm traveling, nothing excites me more than planning an itinerary. Not one of those people, though, that have to follow the itinerary. I know there's some people who plan that and they're like, okay, at 8 o'clock we have to be here, 10 o'clock we gotta be here. I just like having a plan, but I'm very flexible, so just so y'all know, I'm not that crazy. But yeah, anyways, I love planning. So, and there's nothing more fun than planning to do a trip with a friend who's coming over to visit you, and y'all are getting to go together somewhere new. I technically had traveled once internationally before in high school. I was very fortunate enough to go on a spring break trip through the high school with a bunch of other students and teachers for a week to Italy. And outside of that, I had never traveled internationally before. That was chaperone. Obviously, I was young, like 15 or 16, so a whole different experience, a different ball game. And this was my first time traveling internationally alone and having to arrange my life alone. And I hadn't had this experience. I was just very excited all around to be experiencing this, and I felt very fortunate and blessed. And with that being said, we decided mid-September that we were going to start planning. And I do really love planning, but on a more realistic note, I wanted to go ahead and get started with the planning because I was a student. I'm not a person who comes from means. I had worked very hard to get to where I was and studying abroad, and with that being said, I was on a very limited budget. I had brought over what I could spend on my trip, and since I didn't have a visa, I couldn't legally work, so I had no way of making more money. I had no way of having income come in, and so my budget was what I had. And if you guys watching have ever planned a trip before, you know that the earlier you plan, oftentimes the earlier you plan, the cheaper things tend to be. So I wanted to go ahead and get everything taken care of so that it could be as cheap as possible. I could save as much money as possible as an international college student would. And I told this to Charlie, and Charlie was one of those people. She, in terms of planning, she was a lot more laid back than I am. So she was more go with the flow, and she understood where I was coming from, and she was like, okay, let's get on it. So we started planning this thing, and at first things were going great. We were bouncing ideas off of each other. We were both sending things to each other, and everything was looking good. And a few weeks had went by, and we hadn't really, so this was probably getting into mid-October, so a few weeks before the trip is gonna occur. And we had talked about things back and forth, but nothing had been booked, and I was starting to get a bit concerned and really wanted to get the ball rolling. And had it been just me, I would have already bought everything. But so what got to be interesting was when we hit that few week mark before, she started responding less, y'all. And when I say when we were originally bouncing ideas off of each other and began the traveling process, she responded within what I feel like is normal, reasonable means. You respond, the day of, or maybe even the next day. That's usually how I am. Sometimes you can't get to things immediately. That's cool. Day of, next day. Between 1 or 2 days. But then it started, the length of time in which she was responding back to me started to grow. So it started to go from 2 days to like 3 or 4 days to like 5 days. And so time was really flying, and we hadn't got barely anything taken care of. And we were a few weeks out, and nothing was booked. We didn't have anything taken care of other than we knew where we were going, and I had booked my flights on my end, but we were booking, accommodations together, and there were other things that, you need to approve of together. If, you're both contributing financially, so you have to wait for everyone to approve and that sort of thing. So I had found accommodations, but she hadn't really commented on it, or, there would be other things that we would be discussing. So when she did respond after like 4 days, it would be, she would respond quickly to something else I might have touched on versus, everything. So we just weren't getting everything taken care of, to say the least. And she's not responding, and I am starting to wonder, if she still wants to go on the trip. And I'm wondering, like, is something going on in her personal life, or, like, is she just decided she don't want to go on this trip, or whatever the case may be. So I decided to bring up my concerns with her because, one, if she was still interested, I wanted to, like I mentioned before, go ahead and book everything, because we were only a few weeks out, and I just couldn't afford to be spending tons of money on things because we decided to wait to the last minute. And two, if she wasn't coming, I had by this point met other people, made friends where I was at my university and otherwise, and had other invitations, or could have just been planning something completely on my own, or whatever the case may be. So I raised these concerns with her, and she had told me that she was definitely still interested, and she apologized, and she was like, I've been having a family member, her grandmother, who had been dealing with some health issues, so she had been dealing with that as well. She was like, that's why, I've been kind of all over the place with responding. I apologize. And I was like, oh, I totally understand. Charlie was very close with her grandmother as well, so I was like, I totally understand. And she had mentioned that, like, she might have to fly out and go see her, and so I reiterated again, like, hey, are you sure you want to go on this trip? Like, it's totally fine if you don't, because where she was in New York City, her grandmother didn't live in America, so she'd probably have much easier access getting to her grandmother from New York than from where we were going to be in Europe. So I was like, hey, are you sure you want to go? Like, it might be easier to just stay here if you're worried about your grandmother. And I totally get it. If you can't, just like let me know now so I can figure everything out. And she was like, no, it's totally fine. I'm still coming, I'm sorry about that. I'll like look at what you sent me, and we can make decisions and stuff like that. And at that point, again, let me reiterate, I had known her for almost 8 years. I already explained to you guys how she was as a person. I was completely trusting of her. So at that point, I offered to kind of take the lead on planning everything and getting everything taken care of. And I said, look, well, how about you just let me take care of everything? I know you've got like a lot going on, so if you're still serious about it, then, I can go ahead and get everything taken care of and just let you know what I end up getting, and then you can reimburse me when you get here. And she agreed to it. She was like, that works out perfectly, thanks, totally cool with it. And so we decided that I would take the lead on planning, and I would book everything and just send her the information so she'd be aware and keep her like up to date with everything, and we just go on like that. And so at this point, since it was so close to the time of the trip, and I had already brought up my concerns, and she agreed that she was going to go on the trip still. The things that I booked were non-refundable. So, we've got it locked in. I'm a little nervous because, like I said, she's not responding a lot, and she does seem a little vague. But again, she did give me the clarity of her grandmother having health issues. So, I was working with that, and again, understanding things happen, life happens. And so I had booked everything. I sent it to her. She still wasn't really responding, and so this is about a week out, and she's like not really responding to anything or giving me any type of clarity or responding to details that were necessary for us to plan for the trip, or even keeping me up to date with things that were going on. And again, as a disclaimer, I was totally understanding of her having a hectic work schedule and family issues. And when I had brought up my concerns with her, I had told her, like, hey, just keep me updated with everything. Like, I totally get it. You got stuff going on. Just let me know. Keep me in the loop so I know what's happening. And so we're a week out, and I hadn't really heard anything. And I was getting to a point where, for example, I sent her information regarding one of the aspects of our trip. Like, I can't remember what it was. Maybe the accommodation. And she had, like, never responded to that, even telling me that she received it. And like I said, at this point, she was responding basically, like, once a week. I think anyone knows when you're planning something with someone and they progressively start responding slower the closer you get to the date of whatever you're planning, that causes concern and worry for anyone. And so I was at a point where I was like, okay, she hasn't really been responsive, even after me booking everything and, like, taking care of everything. She hasn't kept me in the loop. And I'm not sure what's happening, and I was beginning to get a little frustrated, and I had a mixture of emotions. I was beginning to get a little frustrated because I felt that she wasn't giving me the kind of clarity that you would respectfully and appropriately give someone given a situation. And I was also getting worried that she wasn't gonna go on the trip, and I had already booked everything and it was taken care of, and I couldn't get a refund on it, and we're a few days out, so I don't have time to plan anything else. And so all these things were kind of bubbling up, I guess. And so I reached out to her again, and I was like, hey, Charlie, like, are you sure you're going to be able to go on this? Because I booked all this stuff already, and I'm hearing from you, like, once a week, and it's very vague, and you're not really answering any questions or providing any information that's needed for this trip that I may be asking of you. And I get that you have a lot going on, and I'm totally understanding of, like, if this is too much for you, like, let me know now. We're like a week out, so I definitely need to know, like, now, so at least I have time to prepare myself for this trip if I'm really going to be taking it alone, because I started thinking about this, like, am I going to be taking this trip alone? And I started to be worried about that because I had never traveled alone, and especially not to these two new countries where, the first language isn't English, although granted, after traveling to both these locations, there are plenty of people in both cities that speak English, but I didn't know that. And just the whole idea of traveling alone, that was not something I wanted to do before, and that's not something I was planning on. And like I said, I had other friends planning these group trips together, and I thought I was going to be doing this group trip with my friend, and then these doubts started occurring because of her lack of responsiveness. So I had a lot swirling in my head, and I just addressed her again because, as you know, I've booked everything. It's non-refundable. I've spent hundreds of dollars for your portion of this trip, that are again non-refundable. And if you can't do this trip, that's fine. Just please let me know. But if you're not going to be able to come, I'm definitely going to need to be reimbursed because I am a college student who is living abroad and not able to work legally in the country I'm in, and I'm working on a limited budget with no way of more income coming in if I run out, and I still have to live and eat and all of that stuff. So, kind of just address these things with her. And again, and this was like a few days out, and I was hearing crickets. So I started panicking because I'm like, what is happening here? And in this span of time, within a week to 2 days before our flight to Paris, which is the city we were going first, I texted her. I was calling her, like trying to check up for this trip and figure out what was going on and what was happening. But I also, wanted to make sure she was okay, that everything was okay. And I was like, how anyone would. I haven't heard from her. I don't know anything. I don't know what's happening. All I know is he had family issues with your grandmother, and now you're responding to me once a week, and I don't know what is happening and what I should do, and if you're coming, if you're not coming. And so I reached out to her again, like the third time, regarding the fact that she hadn't been responsive, and was like, hey, basically, are you coming? Like, are you even coming? And she did respond. This was again 2 days before, and she's like, hey, yeah, I'm still coming. I leave tomorrow. This is my flight number, and I'll be staying in this neighborhood. And I was like, okay, because it sounds like a lot of information, but again, if you travel, or if you, even in general, if you plan anything with an event and it's like a few days before, you usually know the details. At least that's been my experience. You know the details of what's happening with your friends. They usually tell you when they land, they confirm their accommodations, they ask if you want to do anything before, like there's a discussion, there's a conversation. And her response was very vague. Like, she only gave me the flight number. She didn't tell me what airport she was flying into. She didn't tell me what time she's arriving. So I was like, hey, I was thinking we could meet up. We could have a night in London together before we left, doing some things, finding something to do. And yeah, it was just very vague. So it was like, okay, maybe she's just, it's hectic planning everything with her schedule. So, maybe she's just having time trying to figure that all out, plus packing, getting ready for this trip and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm sure she's just gonna, catch me up when she gets here. So, I had to put my worries and doubts aside because, I have known her for 8 years, no issues. And I'm sure she'll, keep me updated when she arrives and gets here, and I'm sure everything will work out fine. So I'm like, okay, I just want her to get here so we can, handle all the last minute stuff that we weren't able to take care of because she had been responsive. That, because I could only plan to a certain extent, there were some things that we just would have to plan together without me. Otherwise, I would just be dominating the whole trip. And I wasn't. I'm not that type of person. I want both people to be involved, both people to be happy with the activities and stuff like that. So I was by my phone all the next day waiting for her, excitedly to text me, let me know she landed, she made it. And it gets late at night, and I haven't heard anything from her, y'all. Nothing. Nothing at all. Now I'm in full panic mode because I'm realizing that she probably isn't coming. But I was like, you know what? Let me be rational before I like freak out. So I'm trying to check her flight number. I don't know what airline or anything, so I'm trying to check the flight number, and it was supposed to come in at noon and it came on time and stuff. So I'm like, okay, like, did something happen? Like, nah, I don't think anything happened, so maybe she had to catch a different flight. I'm over here making all these reasons and things that possible scenarios that could have happened. And I'm just a big ball of anxiety and worry and frustration for all these various reasons of her not being able to come and me traveling solo, and like worry about how I'm gonna figure this trip out by myself and being thrust into this, and worried about her and like, is she okay and stuff. But I think at that point I was frustrated, but I just realized that I'm gonna be having to probably do this trip alone. And I still have moments of like, well, maybe something happened with her flight, like she missed her flight, so maybe she'll like book another flight, and she'll meet me in Paris or something like that. So it's like, I'll hear from her probably the next few days. Thanks for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for part 2.